Hello and welcome to another episode of the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name's Nathaniel and I'm joined yet again by my good friend Matt. Second time's the charm, eh?
Yeah, it certainly is. There's nothing like getting the intro completely wrong, having to hit the stop button and redo it all over again. But we are here, second time of asking. How you doing, mate? You all good?
I'm good. Well, I was until the second round of the playoffs started and the draft lottery last night. But other than that, I am very good. Yeah, how's your week been? It's been a while since we recorded.
Yeah. Week's been all right. Can't complain. Kind of settled in to watch the draft lottery last night, and was instantly just in a hole of absolute rage. But I'm sure we're gonna be starting there anyway. So the NHL Draft Lottery has been done. I think it's one of the
tankathon spins.
Yeah, I don't know if there's other sports that do it in like a lottery style. I think maybe the NBA might. But it always brings up kind of contentious points every year, and in terms of how it's done, and people say it's rigged, and I mean, I will say they go through every single precaution possible on TV to be as transparent as humanly possible, so that they can dispel any claims that it is rigged. But the lottery balls came out, and with the number one pick in the 2026 NHL draft, it will be the Toronto Maple Leafs. They jumped 5 spots to land the number one overall pick. Nathaniel, instant kind of reaction to that?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Why would you let the Tiffany franchise, like the most well-known team, have a period of struggle? No, just lay them up. Why not? New GM coming in. Let's just give the first overall pick. Why not?
Yeah, and so they've got kind of Chaika and Sundin in as the kind of spearhead of the new Toronto Maple Leafs, and they had their first press conference a day before the draft lottery, and needless to say, it went down like an absolute dumpster fire. Didn't come off well. And then a day later, they get the number one overall pick. I mean, this is a Toronto team that realistically, I mean, whilst we all kind of bag on them relentlessly for not getting over the line and not getting past the first round of the playoffs and everything like that, they have consistently been a playoff team year in, year out for the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years. They have one bad year. They have one bad year where, quite frankly, the team is awful, the coaching's awful, the guys just don't look up to it on the ice. You've got Nylander flipping off the camera. You've got Matthews being injured. You've got guys up and down the roster just not pulling their weight. Let's just chuck them the number one overall pick and let's see what happens there. That... I mean, look, people saying it's rigged, but I don't see how it could be. Just they got an extremely fortuitous strike of luck. Now they will get to add, whether it be McKenna, whether it be Stenberg. We've got plenty, to discuss with that between now and the draft. And then we were thinking, right, the second overall pick, it comes out. It's basically Vancouver can only fall down as far as 3, Chicago can only fall down as far as 4, the Rangers down as far as 5, etc. But no, we'll have a team jump 7 spots to land the second pick in the draft, and that will be the San Jose Sharks. So, they draft Celebrini, they draft Misa, they've got Smith, they've got Eklund, they've got, Sam Dickinson on defense, and then they get to add, a second overall pick to this team. Now, whether or not they go defenseman, whether or not they look at trading the pick, whether or not they just decide to add another absolute offensive stud to their team, I just couldn't believe that San Jose have jumped 7 spots to land the second pick. I mean, it is potentially the final key to their rebuild being successful and their window of contention opening. But that sees Vancouver fall to 3rd, Chicago fall to 4th, the Rangers fall to 5th, Calgary at 6, and so on, so forth.
Calgary playing at picking at 6.
Yeah, I know. Well, they won too many games towards the end of the season. You know, they decided
Yeah.
to all of a sudden start playing some games and, started deciding to actually start beating teams and picking up points and, ended up putting themselves in a position where they're now, picking sixth overall. And, I was having some conversations with, with various kind of hockey friends yesterday. I dropped into Ryan McGregor's live stream for the for the lottery itself because there was no televised coverage where we are, so I jumped into his live stream to see that. So we were kind of discussing that at the time, and beforehand, I said to him, "I've just got a feeling it's going to be either Toronto or Florida that wins this lottery." And it ended up being Toronto. And I'm there in the chat on Ryan's stream going, I fucking told you so. We couldn't believe it. But, I mean, that's the way it shakes out. We'll see how things move closer to the draft. I mean, a lot of the consensus at the moment seems to be that you've got kind of McKenna and Stenberg at the top. You've got Chase Reed as the best defenseman in this class. You've got Caleb Malhotra making some absolutely unbelievable runs up the draft board. He's had a great playoffs with the Brantford Bulldogs in the OHL. I don't know how it's going to look for now, but we'll have to wait and see. There's certainly a lot of angles to it, and a lot of reasons potentially for players to end up at certain teams, but we've got kind of all summer to discuss that. But
For me, I'm going to touch on the basis for this draft lottery, and part of the draw for me personally, why I like American sports, is that you will get teams rising and falling. For the most part, you have your teams who are always doing fairly well. You got your better franchises than others, but the way it's set up is that there's nothing like who finished last the year before could be champions the next year. It makes it fun. It makes every team is sort of important, as opposed to like the Barclays Premier. Well, Barclays, that's the old sponsor in it, but the Premiership in football in the UK, like you always see Man City, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal. Not Tottenham, but all these teams who are generally at the top of always end up in like the Champions League places. You kind of know what team will finish where, and it's kind of a bit, and obviously it's a whole different setup with college and the way football is done and things like that. But that's what draws me to American sports in the first place. And then on the other hand, the people would say though the people who finish last pick first in the draft, which is great. But the NHL and the NBA have this rule with this lottery in to make it so that it's not a guaranteed first overall pick, to stop teams from tanking.
Yeah.
Like specifically, and making a mockery of the competition. Which I guess is fair. But then that also leads to where we are now. Where Vancouver, who were by and far the worst team in this league, who don't have really any prospects going into next year, have been screwed out of a first overall pick. The worst possible thing that they've done. And I was reading a bit more up about this. 10 times in the past however many years, they've had an opportunity in a lottery to either move up or stay where they are with their first overall pick. And 10 times out of 10, they've come off worse off the back of it.
Yep.
It is something like a 98.97% chance of the hand they've been dealt. I mean, yeah. The fact that they had a 98% chance of getting at least one first overall pick or one moving up in the draft, and they haven't had a single one.
No, they have been completely cursed by the lottery. And, I like the lottery to an extent. It adds a twist to the draft procedures. And like you said, it stops teams deliberately tanking, deliberately being bad, icing poor rosters night in, night out, with an attempt to get that first overall pick and move forward. And but I mean, Vancouver were not only the worst team in the standings this year, they were the worst team by a country mile. Like, it wasn't close. Not even close. And don't get me wrong, they're still going to be picking third overall. They're still going to get a great piece. They're going to add an elite prospect. That whoever they pick will immediately become their best prospect moving forward, and someone who they can really build the future around. But with the team being that bad, if you're a Vancouver fan, you've got to feel upset about the fact that you're not at least getting kind of one or two. And, so you kind of do have to feel for them, in
San
in
Jose,
that regard.
who move same division, moving ahead of him,
Yeah,
and picking the player that was going to be the face of their. I mean, they still might be the face of their franchise. Who knows in this draft? McKenna Stenberg might go, and he might suffer a severe injury in a car crash or something. You don't know, and never play again. I mean, there's probably more chances of that than what's happened to Vancouver in the last 10 years.
yeah, pretty much.
For me, I don't like to moan about things unless there's a way to try and sort of solve it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've just been riffing on this for the past 12 hours since the news has come out of the draft lottery, and I'm like, well, nobody, unless the Maple Leafs, are kind of liking what's happened. Now, everyone's got a bitter taste in their mouth about what's happening. And for me, it could come down as the fact that the draft still have like a lottery of sorts, but it's not a draw of a hat based on percentages and stuff like that. It is done based off the last 5 positions. 5 years, sorry. So it's not just based off of... Yeah. Toronto's had one bad year, have fallen into the top 5-6 picks, and then automatically get boosted up to number 1. They've, in the past 4 years before this one, they've reached the playoffs every year. I mean, they won the Atlantic last year. That should have a weighting and should pull them down a bit. So, I mean, they might end up just staying at the position that they're meant to be drafting in. But there's a team, say Calgary, for example, who have, I mean, kind of did all right last year, but they're not like a big perennial team or anything like that. They don't get shunted down so far because over the past 5 years they have been a poorer team. Because you're not going to tank for 5 years. It's in order to get a draft pick.
No, absolutely not. And no, that makes a lot of sense. Whether you did it over 5 years, whether you did it over 3 years, or something like that. But as opposed to just taking that season in its individuality, then yeah. I mean, you look at other teams like you look at teams like Detroit, who went through a kind of rebuilding procedure, and obviously kind of got the likes of Larkin and Raymond and Sider, etc. Never had a top 3 pick in all of that time, through how poor Detroit have been over the last sort of decade, more or less. Never had a top 3 pick to kind of solidify their, try and solidify their rebuild. So, yeah, I mean, there'll be calls for, the lottery process to be changed. There is every single year. The year that the Blackhawks won it when they got Bedard, there were claims that it was rigged then as well, and that that the format needs to change, and everything like that. Chicago jumped from 3 to 1 to get that first overall pick, and there are certain aspects of the lottery that I think work really well. Like you can't win the first overall pick in the draft lottery more than twice within a 5-year span. Which works really well. It stops teams basically just stockpiling first overall picks and being, bad year on year on year. That is something that discourages tanking. The lottery system in itself discourages tanking. But, it is still like... I think it just feels completely undeserved for Toronto. I think that's kind of what it all boils down to. I mean, if it had ended up being the Flames that jumped to 1, or I mean, heaven forbid, even like the Rangers, if they jumped to 1, at least the Rangers have made an outlining point that they are going to be trying sort of retooling on the fly, trying to add young prospects. They've
over that. No.
They've
just because they said they're retooling and not rebuilding. No, I'm not having that. Carry on your point.
At least they made an attempt to say, like, we're moving a couple of guys out. We are going to be moving forward into the future. We're going to try and build this team around younger players and prospects and everything like that. I mean, they ultimately said they were rebuilding without officially rebuilding, didn't they? or the Canucks or the Blackhawks or, whatever it ended up being. But for Toronto to basically just have a completely dysfunctional year where the franchises, considering it's a mess usually, I mean, it's gone. This year was next level, wasn't it? In terms of how dysfunctional that team was, and the feelings of the fan base, and then you've got Toronto fans dancing in the streets last night that Gavin McKenna most likely becomes a Toronto Maple Leaf, and it's just like, fucking give me a break, man, come on. I mean, the Sharks are the Sharks.
Still fuck it up next year.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, do not rule out the Toronto Maple Leafs. Trying to overthink this pick and taking Chase Reed at number 1 or something like that, because they feel like they need a defenseman, or, trading that pick somewhere. I mean, I've already seen 20, 30 different scenarios for the top 5 picks of the draft already. We're 12 hours removed from the lottery. It's outside of those first 2, you're seeing guys moving all up and down, and people kind of, start throwing out all sorts. So, like Caleb Malhotra, for example, is now being talked about as potentially being that number 3 pick for Vancouver, because his dad, Manny Malhotra, played the bulk of his career in Vancouver. He's currently the head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks in the AHL. So it's kind of like, well, does he go play for his dad? I've heard do the Maple Leafs trade back to number 3 and swap that pick with Vancouver so that, they can draft. I was posing a hypothetical with a Maple Leaf friend of mine, Tim, saying, do Toronto trade that pick with Vancouver for the 3rd overall pick and Zeev Buium, take Chase Reed as a right shot D at the 3rd overall pick, and then there you go. Toronto have more or less solved their top pair of defence for the next decade, and then Vancouver also get, the Vancouver native who they really want at number 1. Do they take Stenberg? Do Toronto take Stenberg at number 1 with Sundin being Swedish, or things like that? The Sharks really need defense. Do they take a defenseman at number 2, and then the Sedins in representing the Canucks at the lottery yesterday? You can't imagine they'll pass on a Swede. So Stenberg then potentially ends up at the Canucks. I mean, I've just seen a million.
The Canucks also have first round pick from Minnesota as well.
Oh right, okay. So they'll have so it'll be a late round, a late round pick.
Or could be used in the trade as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they could move up that way, or do the Sharks make their 2nd overall pick, or do they trade it for, if an elite defenseman becomes available, who they feel like can add them some instant help for a long time? Do you trade a 2nd overall pick for that? Obviously people like Rasmus Andersson are due new contracts and things like that. I don't know if you give up a 2nd overall pick for Rasmus Andersson, but just as a hypothetical, and I'm looking forward, now it's done, I'm looking forward to seeing all of the conversation and discourse that takes place between now and the draft. I can't remember the date of the draft off the top of my head, but we've got a good few months. Chicago in that fourth spot, do they use that fourth overall pick to try and go out and get that established NHL piece? If Dallas struggle to re-sign Jason Robertson, do you throw them the 4th overall pick and Kevin Korchinski for Jason Robertson with an 8-year contract extension in place? We just don't know. But I'm really looking.
I can see your brain.
My brain is going absolutely.
You see, like I can imagine you. This draft lottery has happened. I can see you going, ah! And then cue the Always Sunny in Philadelphia GIF with Charlie Day reorganizing things on the board with the strings, and you're there
absolutely.
I'm surprised you're alive right now. How many monsters are you deep?
None actually today. I'm sober of the monster right now. That being said, there's going to be one getting cracked open immediately after this pod, because I feel like come the end of it, my energy is just going to have gone, and I'm going to need to
Yeah,
pick something back up.
you're gonna go
But
to bed.
yeah, but yeah, we'll try and get. I think certainly over the summer, I think. I'm going to try and reach out to a bunch of hockey buddies and see who wants to come on the pod and chat draft with us. But
Yeah,
it's always one of the most kind of interesting nights of the year. Kind of signifies. Obviously, I know the playoffs are still going on, but it kind of starts that off-season discourse. And
yeah.
just kind of
I
one
love the
one
start of the
final
season.
one final point before we kind of move on to covering some playoff action. Prior to the draft lottery, there was a lot of conversation around Toronto with this new kind of ownership, new kind of GM and everything like that. Do they look at kind of doing a bit of a rebuild? Do they look at trading Matthew Nyes? Does Austin Matthews look for a way out the door? That first overall pick changes everything. Probably to the point where Toronto do what Toronto do every single year and go, we'll run it back. Let's run
Just
it
one more
back,
time.
but let's
One
do
more
it one
time.
more time. But I mean, does adding Gavin McKenna to the Toronto Maple Leafs does that bring them a Stanley Cup? I don't think so. I think it gets them back into the playoffs, but I don't think it gets them a cup.
I think they could have
Um,
made the playoffs anyway, if I'm honest, even with that
yeah,
squad.
yeah,
Um, I mean, if McKenna can play defense, and it depends which way they want to go. Um, it's just the same with the Ducks and the Oilers, where you can add yet another forward piece, and if your plan is to go full ham on offense, but then you look at the teams and who are doing well in the playoffs, sort of Colorado, Carolina, their roster build up is a lot different. Yeah, okay, Colorado still has McKinnon, Nature's kind of top two, and McCarr and things like that, but they got McCarr. But they've got decent goaltending, they've got solid defense, they play a lot more robustly, less fireworks, and it seems to have worked. Panthers teams from the past couple of years, yes, they've got big names, but they are a well-rounded roster with much more spread out, with decent goaltending on the back end. It's the same with Tampa when they won it. When Vegas won it, it was the same with them. Like, it's the same sort of roster compositions that we've seen that have proved successful across the board. And for me, yeah, Toronto could go. We can sell some Stenberg jerseys or some McKenna jerseys and go all out, but that won't get them across the line. I think that's going to be even more of a dumpster fire, personally.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So just to tie a bow on this, then, as the draft lottery figures arise, the 16 picks, so the first half of the first round of the NHL draft, is as follows. So Toronto picking at 1, San Jose at number 2, with Vancouver at 3 and Chicago at 4. The New York Rangers at number 5, with Calgary at number 6. The Seattle Kraken will be picking at 7, with the Winnipeg Jets picking at number 8. The Florida Panthers will be taking the 9th overall pick in this year's draft, with Nashville taking at 10. St. Louis at 11, New Jersey at 12, the Islanders at 13, the Columbus Blue Jackets at 14, St. Louis at 15, and that's a pick that they obtained via Detroit. And then the Washington Capitals will be picking at 16. So, Winnipeg and Florida there, on sort of down years, get to bolster their rosters with a top 10 pick as well.
Yeah. Let's talk some hockey, shall we?
Yeah. So the first round of the playoffs is complete. We are actually currently in the start of the second round. But we covered off in last week's episode, so we're not going to kind of touch on these series because they were already done. The Avalanche swept the LA Kings the Hurricanes swept the Ottawa Senators. So we're starting in the West, Nathaniel. In fact, what a better place to start than the Minnesota Wild knocking off the Dallas Stars 4-2 in 6 games. They find themselves in the second round against Colorado, currently 2 games down, but they emerged victorious against the Dallas Stars. Nathaniel, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So, I mean, what else can I say? I mean, I am one happy fan right now. When we inevitably faced the Dallas Stars in the first round of the playoffs, I think the Minnesota Wild fan in me just thought, well, it's been a good year, hasn't it? And then as we started playing this series, especially on the 5-on-5, and we were doing extremely, extremely well. And I can't remember exactly where we left off, but I think it was 2-2, wasn't it? Or was it 3-2 when we last recorded?
It was 2-2. Yeah, I think it was 2-2. The last at the last podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. And we came out, and yeah, obviously we won the last 2 games. And I watched Game 6 on the edge of my sofa for the entire 3 hours, thinking, "We're gonna fuck this up. We're gonna fuck this up. How are we gonna fuck this up? We're gonna choke this real bad." And it finished 5-2. I think there's an empty net goal in there as well, but I just can't believe that we did it. 2 empty netters with Matt Baldy, of course it was. Yeah, it was that Quinn Hughes goal that really set it up.
Yeah.
Matt Baldy is a superstar. That's what I'm taking from this series. Kaprizov is getting into points, but hasn't been very flashy. It's been every time we've needed a play, Matt Baldy's been there. And
Quinn
I
Hughes
could
as
talk
well
Dallas, but
has been sensational in the playoffs so far. He's been exactly as advertised. He's been, a proper clutch player. He's had some absolutely outstanding plays. He's been chipping in with goals, creating plays, being the offensive weapon that we know Quinn Hughes can be. I really, for your sake and for Minnesota's sake, I really hope they find a way of keeping him around. Whether that's even in like a short term move. Again, just in the social media discourse the other day was kind of seeing rumblings that Minnesota are trying to work on a Quinn Hughes extension that keeps him at Minnesota to the end of Matt Baldy's current contract. So I think Baldy's got 4 years left, I think. 2030. So I think they're going to try. I think they may be working on some sort of extension for Hughes until 2030, and then obviously they'll go from there. But I mean, he has been just sensational. Currently, as things stand at the moment, obviously into the start of the second round, but tied for the scoring lead in the playoffs so far. And I'm going to hold my hands up. I said in the last pod that I think that Dallas had the edge, and they didn't. Minnesota. I was concerned about Minnesota down the middle, but at 5-on-5 they just killed them. They just absolutely killed them, and I think it was a great series. I think we got everything that we wanted out of that series in terms of some really closely fought games, and I think the best. I mean, that's the best thing about a best of 7 series is that the best team usually comes out on top. Usually.
Yeah. I mean, you could still argue that Dallas is a better team than Minnesota. It's one of it's coin flip games into division. Like, I would feel bad for the Stars fans because they've also had a great year and fallen at the first round, but I don't because they're the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Roope Hintz was a massive miss. Was a massive miss for the Stars. And yeah, Jamie Benn went full arsehole throughout that series and ended up blowing up in his face a little bit. But there was always going to be a disappointed fan base at the end of this one because regardless of the result of the first round, both Dallas and Minnesota have had an absolutely outstanding year, and it probably raises a bigger conversation as to how the seeding of the playoffs work, and because this Dallas Minnesota should be, that could well be, that's a conference final caliber series, at least a second round, series. And unfortunately, what we've ended up having is one of the best teams in the NHL getting knocked off in the first round. But that's the structure of the playoffs. That's the way it works.
But then
yeah,
I will touch on it. Yeah, obviously Minnesota go through, and just while we're talking about the structure of the playoffs, I don't understand the rules and why we have to play Colorado in the next round. I say that knowing the fact that we're already 2-0 down and we've been comprehensively beaten, I feel, in both of those games. Last night's game was a lot closer. I mean, what a mental first game it was between Colorado and Minnesota in game one.
9-6.
9-6. It's just every shot kind of went in. It was mental. But Minnesota now didn't have that much of a break in between. They come off a war. They got a few injuries. Eriksson Ek's been out. Jonas Brodin's been out. Yorov's come back in. We've lost Bogosian and as well. So we're struggling a little bit injury wise, and Colorado would just seem to be the best team in hockey. So now Colorado are going to go through against the semi-finals probably, into the conference final against one of the other two teams who I don't think will stand a chance. So I do think the winner of this matchup will probably be the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and look, things don't look great for Minnesota at the moment. Obviously, they're 2-0 down in the series and kind of staring down the barrel of a second round exit. But things aren't over yet. Obviously, game 3 will be massive for Minnesota. If they can pull one back, then it's anyone's series. If they go 3-0 down, it will be quite hard to see them coming back from that. But yeah, regardless, I mean, there'd be no shame in them losing to this Colorado team because they are an absolute wagon. That is for sure. But just kind of moving into the kind of next series, as we touched on it last time. The Utah Mammoth were 2-1 up against the Vegas Golden Knights. That series ended up finishing 4-2 to Vegas. They won 3 straight to take that series and progress into the second round. I mean, I think we were maybe hopeful that Utah would be able to sort of claim a big scalp, but unfortunately, I think the experience that Vegas have, I think just paid off, and I think the inexperience of this Utah team maybe just caught them a bit short.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Vegas this year have been poorer than we expected them to be, but the squad is very much the same. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing that they couldn't turn and switch around. Obviously, they've changed their head coach. They could obviously make a change there, and they have done. But it is no surprise that Vegas have come out on top of that series. The fact Utah were 2-1 up, I think maybe they would have hoped for maybe polishing that a little bit, or maybe take it to 7 at the very least. But again, I don't think, and I was going to quantify that in terms of the Minnesota playoff series. Like, you cannot judge how good your season is if you win the Stanley Cup or not. The fact that Utah have made the playoffs, they're very set in their ways as a playoff team this year. They made very good progress. They should be happy.
Yeah, and if you were to judge your success as to whether you win the cup or not, then 31 teams in the NHL will have a bad year every year. So it's like, it's you need to kind of look at it a bit more holistically. And as far as the Mammoth go, the fact that they were in the playoffs, the fact that they got there quite comfortably. And this series was on a knife edge as well. Vegas took games 4 and 5 one in a double OT, one in a single OT, 5-4 in both games. So, they were right there. And then, they ultimately lost game 6, 5-1. I think they were just out of steam at that point. But, you can still take heart from that, and you can still reflect on the positives. I know they probably won't be feeling that right now. But they can go into next season going, look, they were right there. They hung in right there with Vegas, who are, have pretty much been a cup contender every year since they've been in the league. And they can take a lot of pride from that, and they can definitely build on it moving forwards. And But I mean, it's been kind of some of the, sort of lesser players on this Vegas team that have been getting. I mean, Brett Howden's had a great playoff so far. Colton Sissons has been chipping in with some goals as well. You've seen Barbashev and Dorofeyev's there on the power play as he always is. He's certainly going to be a really interesting conversation over the summer as Pavel Dorofeyev, with him being an RFA this summer. Vegas, I think, as it stands at the moment, have about 90. I think their projected cap for next year, I think, is like 99.3 million, and that's for the 16 players that they currently have signed. So Vegas, being Vegas, are in salary cap hell, but right now, they find themselves in the second round of the playoffs, and I mean, anything kind of it's certainly. They'll be hoping it will. But yeah, anything further from you on this series? I know it wasn't one that either of us kind of caught too much of, just kind of based off of the other series that were going on. But the final series of the Western Conference, I think, was the big one, wasn't it? And the one that certainly has seen the most blowback from the aftermath.
Yeah. It kind of is what it is, that series. It
was kind of
a
like
fine first round.
Yeah, it was kind of like we were all hoping that Utah would get it done, but I think in our heart of hearts we probably all thought that Vegas would probably find a way, and it just sort of was. The end result didn't end up being a massive sort of shock. Yeah, just kind of is what it is, really.
It is what it is. But the final game in the Western Conference, the Edmonton Oilers against the Anaheim Ducks, this is a result I'm happy with.
Oh, yeah, it is. And it's another pick that Matt gets wrong. I am just awful at these. I am fucking dreadful.
You know more about hockey than me, but you can't seem to make a prediction.
No, I think because I overthink it. I overthink it every single... I mean, I think the Edmonton one was probably the one that I didn't overthink the most. I kind of thought, well, both teams can't defend for shit. One team's got McDavid and Draisaitl, and the other one doesn't. So... yeah. But Anaheim knock off the Edmonton Oilers in the first round, 4-2, so they get it done in 6. And they took the Oilers took Game 5 in Edmonton as we kind of thought that maybe they would, but then they went back to Anaheim, lost 5-2, and that's all she wrote. Now there's been a lot of very interesting comments that have come out from Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid since the exit, and obviously it's always a little bit cruel, I think, that these clips that are going to be played for the next however many years are taken literally in the press conference, like after they've just been eliminated.
This is why I hate the media aspect of the sport sometimes.
Yeah, you are kicking guys while they're down. They're at their most vulnerable. They're at their most emotionally raw. They probably are going to say shit that is maybe a little bit, taboo. But yeah, I don't know if you saw the comments made by Draisaitl and McDavid in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm. I did, and I'm part of an NFL fantasy football league where I've never met any of the people involved, but there's some Americans, some Canadians, and some Australians in there. But they all love their NFL and they all love the NHL as well. Now, there's a particular Montreal Canadiens fan in there who's chirping up about McDavid, how McDavid should play for a proper Canadian team and all that lot. I don't know off what basis he can say that after the past few years, but it just got me thinking, and I pitched in that chat, not really knowing these people. Well, in the shit defence off, the better team should get McDavid, and therefore they should trade McDavid to the Anaheim Ducks immediately. And I just think, out of all the teams that's been talked about that could trade for Connor McDavid, just imagine McDavid in an Anaheim Ducks uniform. Yeah, I think that'd be mental.
It would be mental. I mean, seeing him in anything other than an Oilers jersey would be jarring. But he signed that new deal, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
very much putting the ball in the Oilers' court of show me what you're going to do. But I mean, some of those comments just pulled them up. Leon Draisaitl, I'm concerned because we're not trending in the right direction. We've taken big steps backwards, and we need to get a grip of this and head back in the right direction. McDavid said, "Yeah, I feel the same way. It's only a couple of days ago I made those comments. I feel the same way as I did a couple of days ago, and agree with Leon that this organisation as a whole has taken a step back. It starts with me. It starts with Leon. We can all be better. We need to be better." So, I mean, classic hockey player taking the ownership, and, you know, it starts with me. I mean, he's the captain of that team, so, you know, but Connor McDavid can't play defense and offense at the same time, you know.
We can't play on all four lines.
No, he can't play on all four lines. You know, he can't put one of those toddler harnesses on Evan Bouchard and say, fucking stay there. Although I think that's probably the best thing that would be, you know, could be there for him. I mean, it's a really difficult situation, you know, for Edmonton. They find themselves in this real purgatory at the moment of, like, they just need to go all in. They've got no choice, more or less, than to go all in for the next 2 years. And if they don't win, then McDavid's gone. And I don't even think that getting to a final is going to cut it. They've been there. They've made the final twice. And, you know, I just think that they've got to go and add, but it's difficult to add when you don't have a lot to trade, and they don't have a lot to trade.
And they're missing.
Yeah.
They're not getting high up.
They're not.
It's almost like they might need to tank next year and then go straight into, like, the last year for all them.
Yeah, have a Maple Leafy year next year, win the draft lottery, take Landon DuPont, who's their, you know, next year's number one pick. I can't even believe I'm even thinking about next year's draft already. But he is the consensus number one pick for next year's draft, is Landon DuPont. Right shot D. Will come in and regenerate
31 points for the Medicine Hat Tigers.
Yeah. No, he plays for the Everett Silvertips, actually, does Landon DuPont. Team. And I'm pretty sure that he had like 80 points in 42 games or something this year. It was ridiculous. But yeah, I just don't know where they go. I don't know where they go from here. Because otherwise McDavid will be looking for a cup elsewhere.
He's gone. McDavid's gone. He will go, and I mean, will he go to the LA Kings and follow in the...
No fucking chance. No chance. No, I see where you're going there. If he ends up in either an LA Kings or a St. Louis Blues jersey, then I'm not following the sport anymore.
I'm just thinking McDavid to Panarin. Oh, that might be a tasty
McDavid
duo.
To Panarin. Yeah, maybe like 5 years ago that would have been a great duo, but yeah. McDavid in 3 years' time passing it to the ghost of Artemi Panarin, who's there, like, you know, like when a Jedi dies and they just come back in, like, the Force. Yeah, but I don't think that LA team is anywhere close. Not even with adding a McDavid. But
he goes to LA Kings for a bit, and then he ends up in 10 years' time playing for the Rangers, where Matt Rempe's still playing on the fourth line. And then that'll just trigger you into, I know, Mount Vesuvius.
In 10 years' time, Matt Rempe will be playing hockey in, like, Germany, or he'll be playing in some, like, European league or something, or he'll be playing in the ECHL or something. That guy does not have a future in this league. But nevertheless,
this league is bound to prove you wrong and to piss you
100%.
off. So these things
I get
are
every other take wrong. It's going to be Matt Rempe winning the Hart Trophy in 10 years' time with like 160 points or something. But nevertheless, with Edmonton...
Should we talk about the winner of this team?
I was going to say, Edmonton's shortcomings aside, massive well done to the Vancouver Canucks. What the fuck am I forgot about the fact the Anaheim Ducks, not the Canucks, the Ducks. Sorry, I think I've just had some sort of seizure. Oh my god. Definitely not the
Very
winners of
big
this
well
playoff
done to the
series.
Vancouver Canucks for what exactly?
Oh my god. The Anaheim Ducks, well done to them for managing to beat this Oilers team.
He's gone quackers.
Yeah, it certainly has, and you know you're seeing this team really take the next step. They've taken a massive leap now. You know, you're seeing all these young guys, you know, coming into their kind of NHL solidity. You know, Cutter Gauthier, you've got, you know, Beckett Seneca in that lineup who's just been announced as a Calder Trophy finalist. You know, John Carlson's been a nice piece since they added him. Lucas Dostal had a bit of a shaky start in the series, but then just absolutely locked it down. You know, they were absolutely outstanding. And, you know, deserved winners. You know, deserved winners, you know, when all was said and done. The defense is a concern, obviously, as it kind of always is, and it's a little bit weird to me how, you know, a team with Trouba and Carlson and Gudas, and you know, obviously I know Gudas isn't healthy and everything like that, and everyone's kind of playing with a bit of an injury at the moment, but you know, you've got three guys there especially who are kind of notorious NHL hard men, and yet this team just still can't defend. Yeah, but I mean, Jackson Lacombe had a great series as well. He's, you know, when that new contract got given to him at the start of the season, I think a lot of the kind of casual NHL fan base was like, who even is Jackson Lacombe? But he has sort of arrived at this stage. Obviously went with Team USA as their kind of seventh defenseman, didn't even end up playing a minute the whole tournament and came away with a gold medal and everything. But he's just absolutely flying in this team. You've got Pavel Minchukov. You know, this defense will get there. They're just right now a little bit sort of, you know, immature. But yeah, I thought they were great value and did a great job to pick up the win.
Yeah. Now, it is going to be an interesting series against the Vegas Golden Knights. Not sure how those two teams got matched up in Minnesota, matched up against Colorado. I don't know what set makes these do that, but for me, I can coin flip it. Travel costs.
Yeah, it is a bit of a coin flip. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vegas
I can see one of the teams winning 4-1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vegas are kind of repeating themselves in round two almost, in the fact that they're coming up against like a plucky young up and comer. You know, which they've shown. Obviously, they were able to get by in the first round, but that Anaheim team plays with a lot of energy, and you know, it might end up being a bit too much for them. But you know, Vegas currently lead that series 1-0. They picked up a 3-1 win on home ice in that first game. Now, game two, again, is at Vegas before we get back-to-back games in Anaheim. So, you know, if Anaheim, they don't want to be coming out of Vegas 2-0 down, that's for sure. So if they can try and pick up a win to then take back to Anaheim with them, then, you know, they'll be in a great position.
Yeah. Yep. So, who's your picks for the Western Conference then?
It's hard to look past Colorado. I know that's easy to say when they're 2-0 up. And I'm going to back the Ducks. I didn't back them in the last round, so I'm going to back them in this round. I will back the Anaheim Ducks to beat the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games. I will take another 4-2.
I think, I know it'd be sad thinking about this, but I think Colorado sweep Minnesota. And I think Vegas beat Anaheim 4-1. I think they'll be very closely done. I mean, very quick series. I think Anaheim wins one of their home games, but then Vegas win the fifth.
Right. Okay.
And I just think Colorado are they're just the best team in the league this year.
They are so good. They are
just so good. Like even the fourth line players who you don't know of are just, I don't know. There's just something about them. They're special. And I think Minnesota are going to run out of gas. But that's my pessimism coming in.
Yeah. We'll see. They're in Minnesota for the next two anyway, so we'll see what happens there. Right, Nathaniel, the Eastern Conference. Obviously, we know Carolina swept the Senators 4-0 in that first series. We'll start in Pennsylvania. The Philadelphia Flyers beat the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-2 in another 4-2 series. Beat them in 6 games. The season kind of ended up all finishing in, going up in smoke for the Penguins. The Flyers take Game 6 in a 1-0 overtime win. Cam York getting the OT winner and then throwing his stick into the crowd. Got
it back, by the way.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. That's the
Interesting.
only news I took from that game is that he specifically requested the fan to return that stick so he can keep it for his own mementos, and then the fan got a signed stick back and some other bits and pieces.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's like a reasonable trade, I suppose. I mean, I would question why have you thrown your stick in the crowd in the first place if you then just
he's also got
for
a
it back.
10-game misconduct for spearing the crowd.
I did hear, it might well have just been a rumour, but I did hear that like his stick did like hit a fan in the head. But it could well have just been a rumour.
We have warnings up in games to beware of flying pucks, and if you can't expect to look out for a puck, surely you'll be able to see a stick flying through the air. It's probably some fan like scrolling on TikTok or something instead of watching a game.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, the Flyers, they take the Penguins apart in 6, and Pittsburgh just fell apart. They just couldn't get it done. A lot of their guys who were playing really well during the regular season just didn't turn up. The likes of Carlson and Mantha, and we weren't getting a typical Sidney Crosby playoff performance. And I do think I know this is kind of all very revisionist now, but I think based off of what we've seen in the playoffs from Pittsburgh this year, I think next year the Penguins are due to have the season that we thought they were going to have this year, if that makes sense.
Maybe. It's too early to tell. It's just one of those series. Both of these teams, either of them aren't going to win the Stanley Cup.
No.
I would stake quite a lot on that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to outline terms because I'm not going to give the internet meows. But
yeah.
It's just meh. Both of these teams are fine. They're good, not great. The Flyers won it. Fine. I've got no other context to this. It's just it is what it is.
And
There's
we're
more
seeing that
news about Mishkov.
Yeah.
More Mishkov issues coming out. I'm just over it. You just won a playoff series against Pittsburgh. Stop bloody moaning.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we're seeing that already in the second round. Carolina currently 2 games up over Philly. And they've absolutely in that first game, that 3-0 win, they were just absolutely toying with them over the course of that game, and playing with their food, so to speak. It was a little bit closer in that second game. The Hurricanes having to take it in overtime, and they now go back to Philadelphia, obviously with a healthy lead. But similarly, I could see the Hurricanes doing back-to-back sweeps here, and they just look so good. And Logan Stankoven has just been an absolute weapon in the playoffs so far. And I know that Carolina was super disappointed, obviously, when they initially traded for Mikko Rantanen, that it just didn't work there. And he ended up obviously getting kind of flipped to the Dallas Stars, and they got Logan Stankoven back as a part of that deal. And I've always liked Stankoven as it is anyway. I think he's been a great player since he's come into the league. Really, really high potential to be a really great player, and he's really stepped up for Carolina in these playoffs, and been their go-to guy. Taylor Hall as well has been absolutely rolling back the years with some vintage performances from him. Obviously, former Hart Trophy winner, hasn't necessarily had it together the last few years, but you put him in those high pressure, high stakes situations, and he's been able to deliver, and he's been terrific. So yeah, Carolina currently 2-0 up on the series, and I can't see any way back for Philly.
Absolutely not. Get him swept. Get him out of here.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't really have anything further to go off of on that series at the moment. But we'll move into the other 4-2 series from the first round. The Buffalo Sabres got it done against the Boston
yes,
Bruins.
They did.
4-2. And this series ended up just devolving into absolute madness, towards the end. Boston took one back in Game 5 to make it 3-2, but then on the road, the Sabres beat the Bruins 4-1 to take the series 4-2 as a whole. And I mean, Charlie McAvoy's come out afterwards, said he's been playing with a broken hand throughout this. I mean, that's a guy who just doesn't seem to have caught a break injury-wise through this season. But I tell you what, his hand looked absolutely fine when he was trying to take Zach Benson's head clean off. I mean, that was... I mean, they were saying it was a slew foot from Benson. I mean, to me, it was a 50-50 puck battle that, I think maybe he's caught his foot and maybe tripped him, but I don't think it was intentional. And then McAvoy's just gone and just two hands swings the stick right at his head. It was
Happy Gilmore'd his head.
Oh, 100%.
To beat around the bush here.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
He took a skating jump. He charged a stick into the side of it. Honestly, he could have decapitated him. And I mean, it's shocking for McAvoy, and I got a lot of time for that guy. He's been through hell and back. He's a really good player. Normally have a lot of respect for him, but you cannot, with series on the line in the playoffs, lose your head like that.
No.
Let your teammates do the talking. You're the star defenseman on the Boston Bruins. Let the fourth line come out and wreak some havoc. Don't go in like that. No. And that is, I mean, that was just signified. I mean, Swayman lost it at the benches at one point for the Bruins in the 6-1 loss. Obviously, they won the game after that, but it wasn't a spirited performance, really. And then they just fell to 4-1 to the Buffalo Sabres in the last game there. It's just... I'm really happy for Buffalo. We'll touch on them in a moment. But for Boston, this is all their undoing. Like, for me, that team fell apart. They became fractured. I don't know what was going on there, but they've just capitulated.
Yeah, they just came apart, didn't they? They just came apart at the seams, and they couldn't handle what Buffalo was offering them the other way, and they lost their heads. And they beat themselves as much as the Sabres beat them. But they find themselves in the second round. The only second round series yet that has yet to have played a game, and that's because, Nathaniel, we were treated to 7 games of just one of the best series I've ever watched personally, and it's as far as in my time watching hockey. The Montreal Canadiens come out on top against the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-3 in a 7-game series where every single game was decided by a single goal. 4 of the games went to OT. Montreal take it 2-1 in Tampa in Game 7, and what a series!
What a series. And I'm kind of annoyed because they've taken the mantle from Dallas, Minnesota as the best series of this first round. But every single game was a banger. You could put on one of the games and you wouldn't be able to tell you what game it was from. Because they all kind of played kind of like exactly the same. It's just a 7-game war. Obviously, depending on the uniform changes, if you want to be really pedantic. But it was just... They weren't particularly necessarily high scoring. You didn't have like your 9-6 Minnesota, Colorado type games. But you had plenty of offense, plenty of shots, plenty of quality play. It wasn't like a grindy as much sort of series either. It was great hockey, great to watch. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, and Jakub Dobeš absolutely stood on his head in that final game. I mean, Montreal took Game 7 with 9 shots on goal, the same night that Colorado took the go-ahead against Minnesota with 9 goals. I mean, they didn't have a single shot on goal in the second period. They only had 9 all game. Alex Newhook getting the go ahead for them, but Dobeš making 28 saves on 29 shots in that one, deservedly the first star of the game as well. And it was just they dug in, they defended, they took their chances when it mattered, and disappointing for Tampa for sure. I think it's the first time in, was it 5-6 years, that we're not going to have a team from Florida in the Stanley Cup final. Much to a lot of fans' delight. But yeah, this
pay some tax.
But yeah, it was an absolute. It was I don't know if there's much in the way of wrestling fans listening, but the old wrestling commentator Jim Ross would always describe a great match as a slobber knocker, and that was a slobber knocker of a series between Tampa and Montreal. Could have gone either way, and I know Victor Hedman's since come out and kind of made some comments addressing his own struggles this season, where and we've seen it quite a lot with a few players this year, and not to kind of sidestep too much, but I'm really heartened by players' willingness to speak about their own personal struggles that they're going through this year. And I saw kind of a little bit of discussion online where people were saying, like, it kind of feels like more NHL players are dealing with personal struggles more than ever, and it's like, well, no, I think they're actually just feeling like they've got an avenue to talk about it, which is great. I mean, Hedman addressed his own struggles with his mental health and the time that he took away from the team in order to come back a better teammate, a better husband, and a better father, as he described it, which, hats off to him. But yeah, I mean, Tampa will be disappointed for sure, but you can't really complain when you've gone 7 games toe to toe, a goal deciding each one, and I know they do the handshake line at the end of the series. Nothing but respect between those two teams, I think, and hopefully it ends up being it's not the last time that we'll see these two teams face off in the playoffs, because if we could be treated to anything like what we've just seen, then we're in for just more great playoff hockey. But nevertheless, round 2, Buffalo against Montreal, Nathaniel, that's got the potential to be another terrific round of hockey.
Tasty matchup. Local rivals, them two, aren't they, pretty much?
I
think Buffalo's the inherited Canadian team to place together.
Yeah, they are one. They are one. You might say a stone's throw away, maybe a big stone throw away, or a big arm. But yeah, they are almost like the adopted Canadian side. But I'm super excited for this series to get underway. I think we're going to be treated to. It's going to be so fast paced. It's going to be up and down. I honestly couldn't call a winner at this point.
And it's what's nice. Obviously, Montreal's the original six. They've got their history of winning a cup, but recently, like, they haven't really done that much or done that well. One of these two teams are going to be in the Eastern Conference Final, playing for a chance in the Stanley Cup, and it's just refreshing. This is what we like about American sports, that these teams can. Obviously, we've chewed on Buffalo for not being able to do it for years, and now they have done. But they've rebuilt. They've used their years to develop their relevant squads, and now they're in this position, and it's just great to see. And it is just frustrating that teams like Tampa and like Dallas are not out of the first round in place of like the Ducks or the Flyers, because if you have Tampa and Dallas Stars in this second round, you got what a series. Every series will be an absolute banger.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you look at the star power across both of these lineups. You've got Suzuki and Hudson and Slavkovsky, and on one side you've got Power and Thompson, Tuck, and on the other it's just it's gonna be absolutely great. But if I was to put the ball in your court right now, Nathaniel, and say if do you have a team who's going to win?
Buffalo in 7.
You know what? Just to be contrarian, I'll take the opposite. I'll go with Montreal. I will go for Montreal in. I'll also go Montreal in 7. And then whichever team comes out on top they're then going to have to potentially face the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, if Montreal get there off the back of a 7-game series, they'll have played 14 games of playoff hockey, potentially against a Carolina team who might well have played 8. So, whichever team gets through, they're going to have a hell of a job on their hands against the Hurricanes in the conference final. But yeah, I think the East. I think the Western Conference right now is pretty kind of chalk in terms of who's gonna get through there. I can't see Colorado being slowed down by anybody. I think Colorado will make the Cup final, but right now in the East, I think it's so difficult to call. Obviously, the Carolina are probably a slightly weighted favourite, but these other two teams that they could come up against, it could be anyone's game.
Yeah, I think it's more clear. I can see a clear path for Colorado, Vegas. Colorado wins over that, and then Carolina against either Buffalo or Montreal. That's the matchup I'm a bit closer on. But I want to go Buffalo. Carolina beats Buffalo. Carolina final. Colorado wins.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that.
That's
That'll
my
be
prediction at the start of the year.
That'll be 2 cups for Nathan McKinnon. Solidifies him as the better player than Connor McDavid, and the rest is history.
And Nature's is better than Draisaitl.
Oh.
Let's just stir the pot. That's what we do. That's what the NHL likes. With the draft lottery and all these other bits and pieces, they like people to be angry, so let's get people angry.
Yeah.
Fuck the Stars.
Well, before we close out here, Nathaniel, any further little bits from you from the playoffs? Any other little bits? Obviously, we don't need to do any tankathon spins anymore because the NHL's already done that for us. But yeah, I mean, we will be back covering the rest of round 2 as it happens. Potentially with some, if there's any breaking news or any sort of major news stories, then, I'm sure we'll be hopping on to cover those. Plenty of playoff conversation to come, plenty of draft talk to come, a big summer ahead. And, I just can't wait to break it all down with you.
Can I?
Lovely stuff. Anything further from yourself, Nathaniel, or do I get a drum roll?
You probably can get a drum roll. You probably can't get a
round of applause.
Because I still haven't fixed that.
Let's try a drum roll, shall we? Right, guys, as always, you can find us on both X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can also find us on TikTok at Penalty Box Perspective. You can get in touch with us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts or feelings, or you want to chat shit about the draft lottery, then please feel free to get in touch with us on any of those platforms. If you want to watch the podcast in video format, you can do so on both Spotify as well as YouTube as well, at the Penalty Box Perspectives YouTube page. If you want to go and subscribe there, guys, and drop us a like, it is massively appreciated, okay? And if you can find it in your heart to drop us a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify, be massively appreciated on our end, guys, okay? We'll be back with some more playoff action. So stick with us until then, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, guys.